right.
Boom. Hello, everybody. How's it going? I am here with Eric. Eric, say hi.
Hello.
So Eric and I, we're gonna do like a back and forth thing here about jobs to be done. So first, I'm gonna hand the mic over to Eric, who's gonna lead us into jobs to be done and how to use it for things. And then I'm gonna come at Eric with some back and forth. We're gonna argue, fight over things,
Yeah.
and also answer all the questions that you guys have. So let's see. You guys must be hearing us because some people are saying hi on chat. So hey, Ryan and Fahad. Vince, nice to have you, man. Wagenknecht. That's a cool name. All right. All right. So this is like better than Schwarzenegger. Okay. So welcome, everybody. If you have questions for Eric, please post them in the questions tab as opposed to chat, because in chat, it might get lost. Eric, do you have slides?
I have slides, Peep.
Pep.
Pep. Sorry. I've
Pep.
never actually heard your name spoken out loud.
Pep Laya, for the record. People butcher my names only 20 times a day, so welcome. Welcome. Very
you handled it graciously.
Yeah. Okay, so please let's see if your slide share will work. I'll be
Yep.
Ivy, thank you so much for that feedback. I really appreciate that. Eric, please please share your slides. Let's see if it's working. It is. Oh, we can see all kinds of things.
How about now?
Okay, better. All righty. So I am going to drop off the stage, and Eric will have the stage, and I'll be back once Eric is done. Meanwhile, I'll see you in the chat. Peace.
Peace. Thank you, everybody. Great to see everyone. I can hear things beeping. I can't see obviously anyone. So yeah, really honored to be here today. Excited that you guys have chosen to join. Hope to make this a very valuable use of the next 45 minutes of your time. I'll try to move through things quickly, be evocative, and then let's, like Pep said, let's see if we can have a lively debate at the end of this. So my name is Eric White. Run a company called Revealed. What we want to do today is really three big buckets of things I'd like to get into. Number one is I want to introduce you to some of the new thinking that my partners and I have introduced to jobs to be done, hopefully to help it become a more useful technology. Want to talk a little bit then about how to use jobs to be done to improve conversion rates. We'll talk about using jobs to be done to make new products and get into new segments. And then finally, if we have a little bit of time, we can talk a bit about using jobs to be done to create a strategic narrative, or to at least inform it. Just a little bit about myself. I've been around for a while. I spent about 17 years of my career in enterprise software, first as a developer, then as a designer, then as a consultant and a project manager and a product manager and business consulting, and pretty much every aspect of it. In 2016, I got connected with a guy named Alan Clement. He and I became fast friends while Alan was working on a book about jobs to be done called When Coffee and Kale Compete. Over the course of time, we started a business. After the book came out, we spent a lot of time doing a lot of research. In my career, which spans back before we started Revealed, but I've done about 2,500 customer interviews. Right now, in addition to our consulting practice, I'm launching a new course called the Win-Loss Experience, which is going to come out in May. And a little bit about Revealed, we work primarily in B2B software. We do dabble a bit in hardware, and we like working with hardware products that have a user interface component. So that's a bit about me. What I want to talk about first is enhancements to jobs to be done. So maybe what we can do is kind of talk about why we felt like we needed to invest some time and energy in enhancing jobs to be done. So for a long time, I would say jobs to be done was primarily a mental model. You would hear phrases like, the theory of jobs to be done is that customers don't buy products, they hire products for a job to be done, which is kind of cool, kind of evocative, but really isn't a theory. And I can tell you that it's not a theory because it doesn't really help us predict anything. Um, it also introduces some new terminology that has to be explained. And so it was there, and there have been plenty of tools over the course of time that have made jobs to be done a very powerful mental model. But we found that it really started to fall down once we tried to take it from the realm of mental model into actually using it to create data. And even more importantly, using it as a model to predict what may happen in the future if we make certain changes to our product. One of the reasons I was excited and honored to get to work with Wynter, because I think it's that future behavior that Wynter is all about. And that's why I think there's a really good connection here and synergy between what Wynter does and what Jobs to be Done is all about. So data is something that when we have data, it helps us understand what's happened in the past. That can be very, very important for making near-term changes. And so as we've built out Jobs to be Done, we've built out an actual data model so that we can collect information, understand what's happened, and make incremental changes to create growth. The second thing that we've tried to do is develop it as a model. Think about a model like weather model and weather predicting, and a pilot who's flying from one part of the country to another part can anticipate what's going to happen on that flight path, not necessarily based on historical data, but based on models that help anticipate what's going to happen in an hour or 2 hours from now. And so we're very interested in what sort of models can we put together to help people predict what may happen in the future. We could spend the next 4 hours talking about Jobs to be Done. Obviously, it's my life's work and something I'm really passionate about, but I want to break it down into 3 key categories that I think are important for product marketers who are interested in creating content and ultimately influencing organizations and influencing customers. So we break it down into needs, catalysts, and then what I think is our big innovation in Jobs to be Done, the hiring process. And so let's go one by one in those. A need is something that changes a lot over time. As I've gotten into this work, I've heard people talk about, needs are like statues. They don't change, or they change very slowly over time. I can say that's bunk. That isn't true. Customer needs change all the time, and the needs that your customers have during an exploratory or a sales process are very, very different than the needs they have when they're thinking about renewing a contract with you. And so we need a model about needs that help us explain how those behaviors change. The first thing I want to have in mind, or want you to have in mind, is in Jobs to be Done, a need is a goal plus a constraint. It shows us that customers are wanting something. They're wanting something to be different. They're wanting to move in some sort of a direction, but there's something that blocks them from getting there, something that makes it so that they can't achieve the goal that they're trying to accomplish. There are 2 key ways then that a need can become created. The first is that some disruptive event happens in our life, and it helps us realize that where we are is outside of what we find acceptable. I almost think of this as a thermostat to control the climate in your home. If the weather gets colder outside, it means that it gets a little bit colder inside, and therefore your current temperature, your current situation is different than what it is that you would like. So these are external things, or these can be perceived things that help us understand that where we are now is not where we want to be. But there's another way that a need can be created, and I think this is a superpower that I try to have in mind as a product marketer for our own company, and that's that we as product marketers can change what it is that people find acceptable, so that even though nothing changes about their situation, they can start to perceive that where I am now is not where I want to be, because there's some new goal or something new that's going to be acceptable for me, that's different than where I am now. So that's really the model I think to have for a need: goal plus constraint, and then we can actually create needs as marketers. The second thing to keep in mind then about Jobs to be Done is this idea of a catalyst event. A catalyst event is something that we can plot on a timeline. It's something that we either experience or that we anticipate experiencing. So if you're launching a product and 2 months from now, you haven't launched the product, the event hasn't happened, but you know that something is going to be happening, and so you want to be prepared for that. So a catalyst event can be something that we experience and happen to us, or it can be something that we anticipate happening. And we know that something is a catalyst because we can prove how it impacts either creating a need in someone's life, or it has some sort of a relevance in the hiring process, which is what we will talk about next. So as we interview customers and we try to pick apart what catalyst events are, there are lots of important events that we hear about that don't necessarily relate to someone hiring or adopting a product. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the hiring process. These really we kind of describe as heuristics, and these are things that people generally are going through very quickly as they consider a product, as they consider hiring a product and adopting it. So the first two things go together, in many ways go together. Customers, when they see a product for the first time, use this heuristic to say, do I recognize what it is, and is this product relevant to me? Right, and so there are lots of products that I see as I walk through the grocery store or a shopping center that have absolutely no importance to me. I'm not interested in gardening, and so when I pass by potting soil and things of that nature, I recognize what they are, but they're not relevant to me. Sometimes if we don't recognize things, or if something seems new, that can cause us to stop and look and consider. And so these are two things that are really a big part of the hiring process, and they are, depending on the buyer's situation, it can cause them to just ignore it completely, or it can cause them to look into something. The next category really to look at is needs shaping. And any of you who are in product marketing have absolutely experienced going through your sales team going through a sales process, and the customer saying that they need something at the beginning of the sales process, but then when you get to the end of it, the things that they're saying that they're needing and the decisions that they're using to make decisions have changed a lot. And that happens because when we're looking at products excite us about new things that we didn't realize that we could do before. And so this is where that needs shaping. People start to understand, redefine their goals. They start to understand their constraints a little bit better. And throughout the hiring process, what it is that they identify that they need can change a lot. The next big factor is trust. Trust is if I promise you that by taking this 45-minute workshop, you're going to make $1 million next year, you'll never trust me. You probably won't even come and do this. And so trust is very much about, can we deliver on the promises that we're making to people, and is our product going to do what we say it's going to do? Are we as a company going to do what we say we can do? Imagine use then is fascinating, because as people consider software products, or anything that it is that we're trying to sell, people go through this mental simulation of putting themselves into the future of actually using it. One of the examples that I'm going to share with you in just a few minutes is Pipedrive, which is a customer of ours. And it's fascinating to listen to someone who's trying to put together a sales process, imagining in the future whether or not their sales team is going to adopt this product, or how much support it is that they're going to have to provide. So this is where customers are really thinking ahead and imagining how this product is going to fit into their life. The next thing that comes up is value calculation. A lot of times this is really where our product positioning comes in, because when we talk to people about how do you decide if something is worth it or not, they think in terms of two things. So one is they think in terms of, how valuable is this going to be to me as a person or to my business? And they also think in terms of, what other solutions might I put in place to get this job done? So we in software a lot of times hear that we're competing against salaried positions. And so if you're selling a $100 a month piece of sales software, and that's going to save a business owner from hiring a salesperson for another 6 months, there's a huge amount of value there. And so this is the mental calculations that people run through when they decide what they're going to do. And then finally, and I've alluded to this, is choice set. And this is constructing and deciding between our choice set. So the other case study I'm going to use is a product that was designed to help people sleep better. And so as people have sleep issues, they think about a lot of different ways to solve that problem. The problem can range from meditation, listening to music when they fall asleep, white noise machines, all the way to prescription medications. And so this choice set is a very wide-ranging set of solutions that people may look at to help them address the needs that they've identified. So the hiring process, super, super important. And this is really what we find as we get into product marketing. This is really what we're optimizing around and trying to succeed in, much more so than just solving needs. Because needs are included in the hiring process, we need to look a little bit wider. So in the description of this workshop, I mentioned that you can't create growth without changing consumer behavior. Even if you're doing something like trying to change conversion rates, if your landing page is converting at 0.25% and you're trying to increase that so it converts at 1% or whatever, what you're really doing there is you're trying to change the way that consumers are looking at your product or looking at your landing page and making decisions. So really, growth is about changing what it is that consumers are doing. So let's look at a really simple example of someone that we've worked with who used jobs to be done to increase their own conversion rates. Pipedrive, as I mentioned before. As we worked with them, we found that there were 3 key jobs to be done that all of their customers had. The first one is at the very beginning of their business, when they're just in the process of launching. So in this case, they're thinking about launching their product. They're trying to get a sales process under control. They're just at the very beginning. They're making lots of rookie mistakes, and they need help getting a system in place so that their sales process is a process and it's predictable and it creates results and things don't fall through the cracks. The second stage, though, is once the business has been successful for a little while, the business owner starts thinking about hiring a salesperson or hiring a sales team. And in this case, they're still using Pipedrive. Pipedrive is still a great tool for them, and they may adopt Pipedrive at this point because now they're starting to think about, how do I manage my sales team? And how do I keep track of what it is that they're doing without looking over their shoulder and having to stop by their desk 3 times a day to ask how things are going? So in this growth stage, this is another place where people are adopting Pipedrive, but had a very different set of needs, very different set of catalyst events, and as you can imagine, a very different set of decision-making criteria in their hiring process. Now, the third stage is now the business has grown, and now rather than just thinking about hiring a salesperson, now they're thinking about hiring a VP of sales, right? They have this entire sales team. They've got this process that's working, and they're really trying to amp up their business. This is a place where we did see some people coming into Pipedrive, but mostly this was an area where we saw churn. And therefore, as Pipedrive starts to make decisions about what do we do about all of this new information, it was able to give them a lot of clarity to say, we need to double down and figure out how we can win people in the launch and growth stage, how we can keep them through that. And then when they get to this scale stage, how do we recognize that, help them transition off of that, be able to write a case study so that when we're going back and appealing to people who are in the launch stage, we can give them a vision of where it is that we can help their business get to. So a few things that we found then that Pipedrive did and that we've seen others do to increase conversion rates. Number one is being able to say no to certain jobs to be done is really difficult thing to do, but it's also a really important and valuable exercise. And so just narrowing the focus of what it is that you're trying to convince people that you can help them with helps to become a lot more effective and targeted in messaging and sales efforts. One of the really eye-opening conversations I had during the Pipedrive engagement is we were having just a chit chat. I think it was Wednesday afternoon, just sort of in the middle, while we were refilling our coffee, between meetings. And the CMO said, "Hey, you pointed something out today that that justified the entire cost of the project of working with you." And he said, "You pointed out that a lot of people who were coming into our product were just hiring a salesperson for the first time." And he said that was really powerful for them because it gave him this whole new channel of where they could be talking about Pipedrive. For example, when on sales job boards and things like that. And it also gave them this years worth of content to be able to talk about how do you as a founder think about hiring your first salesperson, because it's a really, it's a really difficult thing, and it can be a really challenging thing. So just learning and identifying these key catalyst events that seem to be a part of the process of hiring can help you understand, where to be advertising, and how to talk about your product, and how to be helping people in the situations where they are. This also then helps create some needs. One of the things that we were surprised to find is that people just thought that losing track of deals because you're keeping track of things in Google Sheets is just the way things are. If you're a founder of a company that's launching, you've got 100 different things that you're worried about. And what Pipedrive is able to do by advertising in a little bit different of a way is to help people understand you don't ever have to lose track of the deal. You can set up reminders. You don't have to constantly be scanning through a spreadsheet. And so what that's done over time is it's really changed what it is that these early stage founders are thinking of as being acceptable in their sales process. Of course, there's big time sales enablement. One of the big things that we try to help people with, and that we find this to be very influential with, is enabling a sales team to very quickly understand what a prospect's job to be done is, and then adapt the message accordingly. So if you're a Pipedrive salesperson and you're talking to someone who's trying to launch a business, you're just going to talk about the product differently than if this is someone who's already launched and is now in a later stage and they're thinking about growing the business. And so being able to very quickly triangulate and adapt a message to a person's job to be done can be a very significant factor in increasing win rates. And then finally, every product marketer I've ever worked with yearns to have more influence over the decisions that the product team is making. And so a great example of this is with Pipedrive. They were needing to make some decisions about whether to integrate email into their product. And going through this research and really understanding the needs that they were tackling and how they were trying to help people be successful, it helped them really think through their decision-making process of whether or not they should add this email tool. So it gave product marketing a voice in that product management decision. And so it really helped the two collaborate together, gave them data and good, concrete, solid information that they could use to make some big choices. Someone who does this exceedingly well, I think, is Braze. Don't know if you guys know them. They're a customer. I don't even know how you call it. I don't even know. So look them up. Braze. They're awesome. What they do in their sales process is, rather than case studies, they give use cases. Use cases are amazing for a couple of reasons. Number one is nobody wants to read a case study. Someone can look at this and very quickly understand what the product helps with and how it's helped people be successful. The other thing that's amazing about this is, if I'm a part of a company that's considering bringing in Braze, I can put this into my slide deck and use this to influence people inside my own organization. So what this does is this really helps with imagined use. It does a great job of building trust, and therefore really helps in the hiring process make the case for this particular product. This is another one they put together. I'm just mesmerized by what these guys are doing and how they convey the value of their product in such a visual and concise way. With the next 5 minutes, I want to talk to you about how to use jobs to be done to make new products and new segments. As I came into jobs to be done, for a long time, jobs to be done was really just about understanding the past. And it was helping us understand how people are making decisions today, and hoping, crossing our fingers and praying that they're going to make decisions in the same way in the future, so that whatever changes we might make are going to result in growth. This new vision of jobs to be done actually can help you leverage tools like Wynter to be able to try to create new consumer behavior in the past. So let me just tell you a story about this. A company called Dream, French company, super successful. They made a headband that you wear while you sleep that tracks your sleep and gives you advice on how to improve it. Like I said, the product was being sold in Europe and is being sold to people who had medical level sleep issues like insomnia. they had achieved a lot of growth there, but they knew that their growth curve was starting to flatten, and so they were looking for new segments, and they also had some ideas for new products. And so when they came to us, we started to ask the questions of how do we position this maybe more as a consumer device, and how do we start selling it in the United States? So we went through this process of trying to simulate the hiring process with people who lived in the US and who had sleep issues. We had to work really hard on recognition. People are used to wearing like a wristband or an Oura ring. They didn't have any idea, what a headband would look like or feel like. And so we needed to invest a lot of work in these conversations to help people understand, recognize, and find the device. So we started with this hypothesis that said, let's transition this from a med device to a consumer device. Let's stop selling this in Europe, or keep selling it in Europe, but also add North America as a channel. As we went through the process, something very significant came up, and we learned that people in the US were not going to buy the device. A number of different reasons for that. The big reasons being that it's perceived as a much more, as opposed to an Apple Watch, which is a general device, this seemed a lot more like a medical device. And when it's a medical device, people defer those decisions to their doctors and insurance companies. So what ended up happening is the company made a pivot. And so whereas before they were positioning themselves more as a B2B or B2C company, they began to position themselves as a B2B company, and have created an incredible amount of growth by doing two things. Number one is selling their product to insurance companies as a pre-screening tool for apnea. So rather than having to go and spend a night in a sleep lab, now you can just wear this headband that's really comfortable for about 7 days and get a pretty good sense of if you have apnea or not, or if you need to get further testing. So this saves insurance companies thousands of dollars per year in sleep lab tests, probably millions of dollars. I'm at the scale they work at, saving them lots and lots of money every year in unnecessary sleep lab testing. And it also helps them get more information and get more people engaged in working on their sleep, because this product is really easy to use. And then the second thing is they were able to figure out that through this work that we could sell it to companies that are doing some sort of clinical trials. So if they're working on a new drug that will help with sleep, or working with some new sleep process, Dream is a product then that fits into their clinical trial, saves them tons of money, and helps them be more effective. So jobs to be done helps us beta test the entire offering and go-to-market strategy. So rather than just testing a message, or rather than just testing a product feature, we can put the entire offering in front of people and look at the entire hiring process to understand their reaction to it. We can figure out with jobs to be done, can we put things in front of people in a way that creates needs for them, and then go through the whole rest of that process, assessing what needs to happen so that they have the right level of recognition and relevance. We can figure out what case studies work and don't. That's a big thing in every context. Just because we help one company be successful, it doesn't mean that that's going to convince some other potential customer that we can be successful for them too. So it really helps us dial in what to talk about and how to develop trust, how to help people envision using it, and then ultimately how they calculate value. So in summary, what I want to say is that jobs to be done, focusing on the job to be done or the need that customers have, can be very, very helpful. And I think jobs to be done is a really powerful way to do that. But more importantly than that, we really want to encourage people to look at the hiring process and study that change over time. And it's studying that change over time that lets us really dial in our conversions and our messaging. And it also helps us get our whole entire team, our product team, our marketing team, our sales team, our executive team, on the same page when we're exploring new products or getting into new segments. All right, and so with that, I will wrap my thing up.
Boom, boom, boom. Camera. All right, here we go. Okay. Thank you. And let's dig into some of the specifics, and now let's open it up for all the questions as well. So Vince here is confused if there was a series on jobs to be done before. No, there wasn't. I guess the underlying assumption is that most people would not have a slight idea what jobs to be done is. But maybe in case somebody is confused, Eric, you want to give a quick explanation of what it is and like why does it exist?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we observe is that jobs to be done can be um, a great way of describing customers. So identifying who our ideal customers are, identifying what it is that they need when they're looking for products like ours, and how it is that they're going to make decisions about buying or not products. And so we
Yeah.
really break the job. Yeah.
Cool. To make this whole thing more practical, I would love for us to spitball with an actual person in this webinar.
Mm,
So, looking for a volunteer. And then basically, what we would like to do, what I would love to do is get somebody on the stage here. And then with Eric, we'll ask questions and then just spitball, not in a like
mm.
super precise way, but like in a 80-20 accuracy way, directionally accurate way. How would we identify, what the jobs to be done are for their customers? How to decide which job to be done this person should focus on, really? And how do we identify the catalyst events for this particular business? And for sales enablement, like how do we adapt the message based on those jobs to be done things? Is that cool with you, Eric?
That'd be great. Sure.
Okay, so folks in the chat, is there a volunteer who would love to come to this, join us on the stage, who has the microphone and a webcam, and would love to share some things about their business, and we can do a live quick workshop on jobs to be done for your particular business? I see we
Great.
have 77 people watching us live, so one of you can get some free coaching. Who is it? Trent Anderson. All right.
All right, Trent.
Okay, Trent, I'm gonna bump you to the stage here. Invite to participate. Maybe if there's more time, we can make room for Sophia too. Okay, let's see. Trent, did you get an invite? All right.
How's the mic? Can you hear me?
That's
Oh,
perfect,
crystal,
man.
crystal clear.
All right. So, Trent, why don't you give us a quick lowdown on your business, like what the business is and who is the customer?
Yeah, sounds good. So Podchaser is a database for podcast analytics and insights. We have a couple core user groups. One is PR, another is ad agencies and brands. They're using the tool in very different ways. PR and kind of comms folks are using it much like a Cision or a traditional media database. Brands and advertisers are using it as a way to collect competitive intelligence as to which podcasts they should be advertising on or getting their C-suite booked as guests on. So I'm in the process right now of trying to figure out what is true of the PR group. I mean, you can scroll through LinkedIn and find 15 different posts that declare PR being dead, right? So if our business is built on the back of PR, like what's true of that PR job to be done that can also be applied to different jobs from different user groups, so we can expand just outside of PR, and or brands and advertising agencies. Where else are they sourcing some of this data? What job are they actually trying to get done? Is it being driven by client side? Is it being driven by some Gartner report that they saw that, hey, these podcast things are seemingly going to be good, right? So I guess that's like the 30,000 foot view. Happy to get more granular if needed.
Yeah, sure. So, do you mind if I go ahead, Peep, or do you want to ask something?
Pep, and yes.
Pep, I'm sorry, I keep saying that. Terrible habit. Yeah, so Trent, a couple of questions. First is, can you tell me a little bit about who the buyer themselves tends to be? So you've talked a little bit about the business. Who does the buyer tend to be within those businesses?
Yeah, so let's use Edelman as one of our customers. They're obviously a global PR agency. Most of the initial contacts happen from an account executive or an associate who's part of a larger client team, right? So these tend to be, call it 24 to 34 age. And they're usually part of a larger group, from account executive to account supervisor, who reports up to account director, who reports up to VP of accounts. And it's usually based on different industries, right? So one might be health sciences, one might be energy, one might be whatever. So like they have customers in all of those spaces. So the typical point of entry is, again, with this younger demo, I'm assuming, and through some of the research that we've done in interviewing these folks, they're listening to podcasts themselves. They're spending time there. So they're saying to their larger buying group and their larger customer group, podcasts are a thing, right? So that's, I guess, the stand up there.
Yeah. When I was doing my little modern art thing, with the ball and the line and kind of the line moving, what do you, in your research, what are you seeing as the constraints? So in other words, what is it that they're needing to get done, and what's blocking them from getting that done?
They've spent a lot of time and money historically over the last decade trying to get clients on cable TV shows. So MSNBC and CNBC are typically two of like the most referenced. And perhaps because of waning interest in cable television news, like their message, their client message isn't getting to the right people as it once did. So I think that's where there's a gap. So they're saying, okay, outside of traditional legacy media, where else can we find pockets of influence and audience that's going to be receptive to the message from the brand?
Okay. So they're trying to modernize. Is that a good way to summarize it? They've done things an old way. Now they're trying to do new ways of connecting.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's from the jobs perspective, the two things that I would be really looking at are something happens when there's this desire to modernize and change and find new channels. Something has happened. They've had my guess would be some new VP of marketing somewhere has come in and said, hey, we need to shift how things are going. We find the same thing in our businesses would be very similar. The place that we like to come in is, new CMO, new VP of something or other in marketing has come in. And so those are the types of folks that we're looking with. And so the messages that, really resonate are like, you're going to help, you're going to put your mark on this business and really transform. And the real thing then that I find, like the underlying thing, is that marketers trying to convince other people inside their organization that this pathway of going down dealing with podcasts is actually going to help. And they don't know necessarily how to convince others that that's the case. Or there's the second thing that is just, maybe they're not even sure. Maybe they're looking at a bunch of different possible channels, of which, podcasts are one. And so that would probably be where I would start looking, is like, what's really happening inside those individual lives. I usually, in B2B, I create a matrix. And so the x-axis is what's happening in the business right now. Business is trying to grow, business is trying to modernize, business is shrinking, and they're trying to come up with new, they're throwing darts to try to find something new. And then on the y-axis, I'm like, what's the almost persona, or what's the individual motivation that we're working with, right? So I'm coming in, I'm starting the new job, and I'm trying to put my mark on it. I'm trying to persuade others that podcasts are the right thing, whatever those things might be. And then what happens is you start to get heat maps, and you'll start to see like, oh my God, we are crushing it when it's this particular persona and this particular business objective, but we're missing the mark when it's this other thing. Right. And so that's usually where we kind of find, like, there's a business job to be done and there's an individual job to be done.
So those plot points on the heat map, the eventual heat map, those are plotted by you based on the JTBD interviews you're doing with personas in those segments?
That's right. Yep. Across
Okay.
all those segments. And so we tend to look at, I'm guessing you guys go through a sales process. So we look both at where did the plane land? In other words, where did we book the client? Where did we go through a sales process where we didn't book? And that starts to give us like, okay, we got a bunch of green check marks here, but we got a bunch of red X's here. And it is by looking at both the business and the persona, because the problem could be if we just look at the persona, then we're not getting that extra dimension that helps us understand when are we winning with that persona and when are we not. Or if we just look at the business, we had kind of had the same thing, like, okay, well, it's just this PR business, but there are different personas within that, and we can start to get a sense. And then that tells us either let's just double down on this, or we've got to figure out, and ignore this other, or we've got to figure out how to win that other. And so plotting it that way, I have found to be very persuasive inside of companies to help really drive decision-making processes and get a lot of clarity about what messaging should be.
That's helpful. And last follow-up question, at what point do you deem that significant enough, i.e. how many interviews do you conduct before you feel confident in mapping and then presenting?
So what we do is we have this technical term called theoretical saturation. The less technical way of describing that is when we get bored during the interviews because we're hearing the same damn thing every time. For us, that usually tends to be around 15 to 20 interviews, just depending on how broad things are. At that point, we're starting to hear the same types of things, and we're starting to get clear enough to say, like, okay, we've got pretty good. Really, the question is, when do I have enough information that I can convince others? But
So
15,
the
20
science
is,
of qualitative research has looked into this question repeatedly, and the scientific term is insight saturation. And the
Insight
studies
saturation,
point that after 12, 13 people, you reach insight saturation, meaning that whether you interview 13 people or 33 people, the number of insights is exactly the same. The benefit of interviewing 300 people is you can compare the trends. How many times this is said versus that is said. Of course, 300 interviews. So probably you want to cap it at like 15, and you're good.
Yeah, perfect. Very helpful.
Awesome. Thank you, Trent. I'm gonna kick you out now. Okay, so. Let's take some questions, and then I have also my questions. So I want to make sure that we get to everybody's questions here. So Luke is saying, you talked about a new way of using jobs to be done versus the past. Could you summarize this again? What's the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that's important to know is there are two different interpretations of jobs to be done. One came from I'll say roughly Bob Mesta, and the other came from a guy named Tony Ulwick. So Bob Mesta is a little bit more the line that we're out of, and that is much more about timelines and forces of progress. Versus Tony Ulwick's is much more about, I'm going to describe use. It's kind of using. So Tony will talk about a job to be done is listen to music. For us, that's not interesting. It's also part of his. That's his property and his method, and so we tend to be more on this side. Now, on this side, in the past, it was always about interview customers who have just made a decision and study their revealed preferences so that you can make sense of what actually caused them to buy. Because people will tell you one thing, but their choices and their decisions will reveal something very different about what was really important to them. So in the past, I would say our branch of jobs to be done was very much about studying the past and then praying that the way that things worked in the past are going to work the same way in the future, so that things are consistent. Whatever changes we make, people are going to make decisions the same way. What we're trying to do now is make jobs to be done less of a thing that's just about studying the past and something more that helps us predict what might happen in the future. So if I'm going to make a new product, how are people going to react to that in the future? How do I study consumer response to something that doesn't exist yet? And following the hiring process, that allows us to almost simulate what consumer reactions to an entire offering are going to be. And so that's the difference between, as we see it, that's the evolution.
And so Linda is asking, can you please give an example or more detail on how to use this approach to test a new product?
Yep. So what we find is that when companies are working on a new product, so I call it our next product, right? And so companies are usually built to exploit market opportunities that they've already found, right? Like, we found this niche, we found this group of customers, and we're just going to go and double down on it and make those people happy. The problem is that when you're trying to create a new product or you're trying to get into a new segment, those habits and measurements and the way of thinking that you have for being successful with this product that already exists don't work with the new thing. And so as people are trying to make decisions about the new thing, what will happen is the product marketing team is going to go out and just test a message. The product management team is going to go out and they're going to do, feature adoption stuff. And then they try to both take their information in addition to all the biases and assumptions and old thinking they have, and they're going to try to like force all of that together to make a decision, and you can never make a decision. So what our approach is we call it, simulated consumer response. And so we interview people or we almost go through a simulated sales process. So we recruit people who fit an ICP, who show some interest in the type of product that we're offering. And then we talk to them as we get into conversations. I wish if I had more time, I could show storyboards, but we talk to them about their needs and their current situation. What are the things that they've tried? Partially because that starts to fire the emotional responses. When we're talking to people about sleep, we'd hear moms and dads say things like, I just feel like a shitty dad all the time. I'm just tired. I don't sleep, and I feel okay, that starts to bring to surface what people are feeling. And then at that point, we can put a landing page or a pitch deck in front of them and start walking through the offering with them, even if that offering doesn't exist. And we can start to get their reaction. And they'll say, well, that doesn't really meet my needs because my needs are actually more like this, but you're talking about this thing over here. Or, you've got this crazy price tag. Like, couldn't I just get that done with a 30-cent melatonin pill? And so we can really start to get some reaction so that the whole team, the product team, the marketing team, the sales team, the executive team are all able to operate off of the same set of information so that decision making about how to move the offering in its entirety and the go-to-market strategy forward can become very clear to them.
So Sophia here is asking something that I think a lot of people are thinking. It's like, okay, I get the idea, but like, what the hell do I ask these people? Right. So I want to understand what are the jobs to be done, which one is most important, and which one should I lean in to get more sales and so on. So, what are you asking in these interviews?
Well, so we've kind of talked about two different types of conversations, right? And so the one that we were talking to Trent about is going back and studying people who made a recent decision about your product, either to buy it or they looked at it and they didn't buy it. So let's start with that. With that, I never asked them what they wanted. We just start out and we say, tell me about the story. How did you end up, you're busy, you've got so much going on. You made some decision at some point to talk to our sales team. What was going on in your life and in your business that led you to pick up the phone and invest some time talking? And so that is a great starting point, because then that's where people are going to start, unpacking all this stuff. Like, oh my God, we had this meeting with the CEO. The CEO, fist on the table moment and said, we've got to change, we've got to do things differently. And so so that's where we really start to get into the story of what was happening in that context that really forced them to take some sort of action. From there, we sort of go backwards, right? Like, oh, well, was everything fine? Like, were you surprised when the CEO slammed her fist on the table? And they'll say, well, no, it's been trending. And so with that, we can really just unpack the story of decisions that they made along key points. And I want to point out here, a lot of times people want to ask customers why they did something. Never, ever, ever, ever do that, because why is completely subjective. If you ask how they made decisions and when they made decisions, that gives you the type of information that you can use to form probably a more reliable picture of why somebody did something than if you just asked them. So those interviews about studying the past, just have a conversation with them and start with, why that day rather than 2 weeks before, or rather than just kicking the can down the road for another month. That conversation is going to just open up so much information, and it puts the focus on them and their life and their circumstance, takes the spotlight off of your product, and is going to really open up and show you a lot of things. Now, on a more future-oriented sort of thing, that's harder to do because they haven't made some sort of a decision. And so that's why we, first of all, make sure that the person that you recruit fits your ideal customer profile and make sure that they've shown some evidence of needing to solve whatever problem it is that your business tries to solve. From there, you're going to talk to them about their needs, right? So if I was Trent, I would say, have you guys ever tried to, do PR through podcasts rather than traditional channels? Oh, well, we tried that 6 months ago, or I've been wanting to try it, but I haven't done it because I can't convince anyone. So you can start talking to them about things that they might want or needs that they may have. And then that creates the space where, in many ways, you can sort of come in and offer them a solution and gauge their response to that. That's my 3-minute answer. I mean, we can talk a lot.
Yeah,
and Sophia, we're connected on LinkedIn. Reach out to me.
Totally. Let's take 2 more questions. Cameron is asking, so do we incentivize these interviews? And if you ask 10 people, how many people will actually join?
Yep. Absolutely incentivize. I like to say, these things are expensive. You're asking people to spend their time, to spend an hour talking to you. So I always incentivize. The way you incentivize is going to be different. So if you're trying to interview physicians or attorneys, you're probably going to have to either pay them a lot more money or offer to. They may not care about money. Maybe offer to, I don't know, donate money to a charity that they care about or something like that. But yeah, absolutely, we incentivize. I want people to take the conversation seriously. You don't want them looking at email. Like, you want their attention. So pay the nice people. Yeah, so absolutely do that.
Conversion rate. So if you invite 10 people, what do you typically get? 1, 2?
It depends on the approach. So when we're working with Pipedrive and they get, whatever 2,000 new customers per month, I'm like, well, we're just going to blast out an email. We know that we're going to get 20 people to talk to.
Yeah.
I did some work with a company called Cordial a couple of years ago, and they had 20 new customers in the entire year. So it's like, well, we have to get everybody. And so the conversion rates are just going to be very much based on what's tolerable to you. And you can do a low touch if you've got access to a bunch of people, or if it's a smaller group, then you're just going to have to do a higher touch, call, offer more money, be very flexible about the amount of time that you're going to, maybe you're going to have to do your research over the course of 6 weeks rather than 1.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And after I kick Eric out in 2 minutes, I'm going to show you how you can do this thing with Wynter and on demand, guaranteed 15, 30-person, 50-person samples. Eric, last question. So Lauren is saying, shaping needs and imagined use seem highly related. Can you elaborate on the differences?
Yeah, I would say you are right on. You are right on. And so what we have found is that you can't separate supply and demand. What people need is very much based on what they think the product can offer them. I would love to be able to teleport. I wish I didn't have to drive to the office. I wish I didn't. We just went on a vacation. I had to spend 12 hours in the car with my kids, and it was, not fun. I wish there was teleportation. Well, I don't have any needs around teleportation because it's not possible. So absolutely, the needs that people create and imagine are very much based on the products that they're looking at and weighing. Go back to the sleep thing. If you're considering prescription medication, your needs around prescription medication are very, very different than if you're going to use a white noise machine. So absolutely, the way that people imagine using it and needing, and that's why you have to look at the whole offering when you're looking at a new solution, not just certain components of it.
Beautiful. Well, Eric, thank you so much. You're a wealth of knowledge. I dropped Eric's LinkedIn in the chat. So guys, connect with him, send him a message, follow-up questions, maybe hire him. So Eric, thanks again. I'll see you later.
Yeah. Thanks, Pep. I look forward to it. Appreciate you having me on. I'm listening just to hear what you have to say.
All right. Peace. So I'm going to very quickly in the next 4 minutes, just show you a thing. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you how you can do this. So in Wynter, when you log in, this is the dashboard, the different, if you're already a user of Wynter, then we changed this yesterday. So we have a asynchronous surveys, buyer intelligence surveys, we call them. And one of these is jobs to be done survey. So basically what you do here is, give it whatever name you want. You can survey your ICP. So these are not people who just signed up or just bought from you. So it's slightly different than what Eric said. So this is if most of the market out there has not bought you yet, right? Like you want to reach the people that have not heard of you yet, and so on. So you want to understand, well, what are their problems? Like, what marketing message can I lean into that really resonates with a big pain that they have? So jobs to be done survey. So basically, we have how this works is that we are filling in these questions, and obviously you can customize this and add your own questions in here. And so this helps you figure out what are the jobs to be done. And of course, if you use Wynter, in 24 hours or max 48 hours, we'll give you a guaranteed amount of responses. And since this is a survey, so surveys are not as high quality as interviews. 1 hour interview is absolutely creme de la creme, but it's expensive. It's a kind of a pain in the butt to get it done and organized. With this is click, 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 boom, you get all the data, right? And it's reasonably high quality, and I use this all the time. So if I show you like one of these surveys that I did, so if I go to my test history and show you a test that I did, might be actually, I have so many tests here. Okay, product marketer survey. So this is me surveying product marketers, right? And I am asking them, what are your biggest pain points when it comes to this, or how important is this task for you, or what is your current satisfaction level with solving this, and like what are your top 3 pains when it. So these questions are not exactly like jobs to be done formulaic questions, but basically it's just a way to show you what the data will look like. And so like I have voice of the customer data on what are the pain points the customers is feeling, like, and of course I can word this however I want. So this is available to you right now. Any questions about what I just showed you? Let's see, Esteban is typing something. You can just drop a question in the chat or whatever. Oh, where can I find this? This is inside Wynter. You go to wynter.com and then boom, there you go. And then obviously Wynter is with B2B audience targeting. So if your ICP is a CMO at a B2B SaaS company with 100 employees, boom, we have these people, on demand. Or e-commerce, back-end developers, or like whatever it is. So that's what Wynter is focused on, is B2B audiences, right? Cool. Looking at the time is up. So if you have any further questions about jobs to be done or Wynter and how you can do async stuff, just hit me up, connect with me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, send me a DM, and I'll help you out when I can. Thank you, guys. It was lovely to have you, and I will see you in the future. Peace.